So today we're going to talk about disassociation and how it relates to minimalism. Amanda, can you just tell us a little bit about disassociation?
Yeah, so we're going to be talking particularly about dissociation identity disorder. The DSM-5 recognizes this as shorthand for DID, so we'll be referring to it as DID today. Also, formally known as multiple personality disorder. And in the community of DID, they sometimes refer to their personalities as alternates. So if we're talking about personalities in particular, like we might be talking about alternates or that the population, it's kind of hard to know even if you have DID. So right now, it's about 1% to 3% of the population has DID. It is formed by having extreme trauma in your life as a child. And so before the age of 7 to 9, we still have a very fluid personality. I like to think of it as like trying on shoes to see, like, for us, like, what's going to be the best survival mechanism? Is it going to be us being funny? Is it going to be us being smart? As young children, trying on all these different personalities to see which one makes us thrive in our environment. And so with DID, it comes by having extreme trauma, and then personalities, instead of enmeshing together at age 7 and 9, they kind of make this hard, stark lines. And one of their personalities will be holding some of the trauma, and then others will be holding different things. So there's the protectors, and I like to kind of think of it as like a whole family system where there's some protectors, there's some nurturers, there's some, people who are in the class clowns and et cetera. There can be multiple splits over 20, 50, and there can be 3 personalities. So there's usually a primary with DID, and then everybody else kind of flips in and out. Some people, before they're diagnosed, sometimes feel like they have an alternate ego or like an internal voice that's not necessarily theirs. There's 3 different stages of DID. And so with DID, or like 3 different like levels of extreme. So the first level is kind of like you feel that you step kind of aside, but you're still in your body. You step aside and you don't have control, and you're just kind of watching your body do things. The second is you're floating, completely disassociated from your body, but so you're feeling not connected, but you're watching your body do things. And then the third, which brings on the alternate egos and other things like that, is where one personality is completely gone, goes to sleep, and then a new personality steps in. And so we're talking about DID with minimalism, and how do you create a minimalistic home and a minimalistic environment with all these multiple personalities, or with DID.
Yeah, one movie that helped me understand DID or multiple personalities is the movie Split. Have you seen it?
Yeah, and the community doesn't really love it because I was actually researching Split because it is so. I haven't seen it actually, but like it is a common talked about movie with DID communities, and he watched like YouTube videos of a lot of DID people, but he didn't ever interview or talk to them. So he has a lingo in the body language correct, or not the lingo, but the body language correct, but he's lacking the depth of like what's really going on. So like a lot of people in the community don't like Split because it doesn't truly represent their voice. Although the behaviors are correct, the voice is mischaracterized.
Interesting.
Yeah, probably. I mean, like I said, I should probably see the movie. I haven't seen it. Part of the issue with DID is like the personalities that are like the protectors are the ones kind of holding sometimes the trauma. and their main role is to stand back and protect. There's 3 cardinal rules from my understanding, like that kind of DID people take on is like the first is not to be caught by the main driver of the vehicle, of the body. Like, so never let them know that you're there. And so it gets a little confusing sometimes when you're like, wow, magically I have groceries that I would never purchase and I'm in my car. And my last thought that I had was me being like, oh, this is overwhelming in the grocery store. And so, like, how did all this happen?
Interesting. Yeah.
And so
Huh.
that's kind of more the extreme DID, like with the alternates flipping in and out. So, with
How
that
does this
being said,
all relate to minimalism? How does
yes.
having multiple personalities relate to minimalism? And I can kind of see what you're talking about with like referring to DID as a family. And I kind of can relate to having minimalism and having a family because it helps you run a family better if you're minimalistic. There's less things to manage, less chaos. But also you need to be honoring of every individual in that family's
Yes.
wants, needs, what they want to keep, what they want to hold,
Personas,
yeah, what they
images.
value.
Yeah.
So, is it similar to that where a person who has multiple personalities or DID, they need to be honoring to all those personalities, those voices, but also minimalism can be a huge help because then they're managing a lot less all around.
Yeah. So I was thinking about this, like with, like what does disassociation identity disorder, like what would their shortcomings be with like minimalistic lifestyle? I could see like their higher functioning parts of them totally loving the idea of minimalism and totally like having things organized. For the extreme people with alternates, where maybe they're alternate that are more childlike or holding more of the trauma, would want more stuff in their environment.
Yeah, like a kid may naturally want more stuff, and then an adult may want more minimalistic stuff because they're the one managing stuff.
So my thought and recommendation, if you have alternates, extreme personalities, where it's very broken up into different categories of people, is to let that person go through the stuff, whether it is writing a note or, like asking them to watch like in that alternate or even sometimes like, hey, all you guys in there, we're going to turn on a TV so everybody can watch this all at once. I'm communicating with all of you guys so we get on the same page. I want to be a minimalist. I understand, Tony, you don't want to be a minimalist, and that's okay. When you're in the body, you can decide if you want to be a minimalist or not, or like the one driving the body, then you can decide to be the minimalist or not. But like, this is what I'm doing. And like, do you agree? Do you not agree? What are your problems with this? What trauma do you hold that makes it so you don't want to get rid of this? Like, hopefully if you have DID, even like lower stages of DID or like lower symptoms of DID, hopefully you are like working through it and like under the care of people who you love and trust. But with that being said, like there is a way to work through the stuff, but the person who owns that identity needs to be the one to discard or keep those belongings.
So curious. Whenever I've done minimalism, I always just started over the things that I have authority over or are mine. So
Yeah.
like I would start in my closet and work my way out in my things. I would never like touch my spouse's things or my children's things. And it took a while before my spouse even caught on that I was doing it. And then he was like, "What are you doing?
Same
Like, this
thing.
is
Yeah.
making your life really wonderful. Tell me more. Help me do the same thing." And I can imagine that might be a good approach for people with DID. Like, and I'm not sure if they have their own stuff that's kind of feels more theirs and not their other personalities. I'm not sure how that works, but if you do have something that feels like it's more yours and it's not a communicative thing, start living it there and don't push it onto the other personalities. Just kind of let that personality thrive and embrace minimalism without discarding what was you were you saying Fred? Discarding Fred's
Yeah, like,
favorite shirt. Don't get rid of
right.
his favorite shirt. Don't mess with Fred's stuff. Just the things that belong to you, you can minimize and work through.
So I have like this interesting story. Before I got my master's degree in mental health, I was helping a client of mine clean out her closet and stuff. Like, so I didn't know much about DID, and all of its forms. I was honestly, like, at that time, really afraid of people with DID just because of the stigmas in the community. We come from a family. They often spoke about DID, but it was in a tone that was mischaracterizing the community and also mischaracterizing the individuals. Um,
Yeah. I like to speak a little to that. So we were raised hyper religious, and if I were to define what it was from that stance, it would be mean like you have multiple evil spirits in you, like
yeah, we definitely
a
had the old
possession.
school ideology of it taught to
Yeah.
us,
Hmm.
which is like very, very like, yeah, I mean, early 1900s, 1800s belief system. I mean,
Yeah.
it wasn't even in the century of ideologies. I'm just trying to think, like, it wasn't even things that, like, people 100 years ago believed. Like, we had old school thinking
Yeah.
taught to us, which was completely wrong. But with that being said, like, it was what was in my head. So I'm a little timid to be in her space because I'm like, what if, her protective personality comes out and just murders me with a thing that's like
Now looking
stupid,
back,
right?
you probably are like, what
I
was I
just
thinking?
I just cringe and I want to give her like a phone call and be like, girl, all of you
So
girls and whoever, like all you guys, I am so sorry. Like so sorry from the bottom of my heart. I did a lot of harm without intentionally knowing it, and so but with that being said, so I was in her space and she asked for me to come over, and usually with the alternates, from my experience, they feel more comfortable with one presenting to a person. So they can shift a lot, and that is an indication that they feel very safe and very comfortable with you if they are shifting. My point being is, like, how do we as extra, like, people support our loved ones with DID or friends and family members anyway? And so with that being said, going through their space and dividing their stuff from alternates is good, and then determining, this is Mary's pile. Is Mary in the driver's seat right now? And like, okay, Mary, we can make decisions together and work together to like decide if this is something you love or not love. But like, how dare you decide and I decide if Fred is going to love this or not love this, and we need to get rid of it. But like, so that's kind of what I did with this lady, was like, she wanted to get rid of a ton of stuff. So we just went through and got rid of a bunch of stuff. And then the next day I got a very, very angry text from her being like, like, I can't, where's all my stuff? Like, I can't believe you got rid of it. And I already like dropped it off at like a thrift store on my way home. And so like, I was like, I'm sorry. And now I'm scared because like Fred's going to come and murder me because like we got rid of his stuff. Like,
yeah.
rightly so, her
Yeah.
other personalities were very irritated and very betrayed by me, as well as by whoever like was in that driver's seat that day that was making those decisions. So
And how dishonoring of the other parts of her. Like, that's so dishonoring. Like,
mhm.
they probably felt violated, robbed. Like, it just probably felt so uncomfortable for her multiple personalities when they did come to the forefront and realize all their precious things were gone.
Yeah. And this is a population that's already seen the trauma of the world. They're kind of some of the people that we should be linking arms around and really loving on and supporting because holy hell, they've been through it. And so these are the people that need the kindness, need the support, need the understanding. Well, like we all need understanding and we all need love. But like to like have fragmentation that severe at that young of age, they really did see stuff, a lot of stuff. And they really are a vulnerable population in the sense of what if one of their child alternate egos is in the driver's seat at the time? Like they may be in a grown body, but like their child doesn't know how, like they could be they could be kidnapped just like any child, you know, like they're wandering around with a grown body potentially in a child state and they don't know how to cross streets. They don't know how to protect themselves. Anyway, I'm just saying like this population can be extremely vulnerable. And so like when we're in their space and taking care of them and supporting them in their healing journey, treading lightly and giving them lots of love and support is truly what they need because they've been through a war.
It reminds me a lot of when you see a kid who looks older than their age. Maybe they're pretty tall for their age or pretty big for their age as well. Like they look older. Like I've seen kids that are 2, but they look like they're 4 or 6. And it's confusing because they'll go to talk to an adult that doesn't know their age, and the adult will be kind of pushy, like, hey, you should know how to speak. You should know how to do full sentences, speak eloquently, speak like a 6-year-old. And they talk like a 2-year-old because they are 2. And that's an extreme example, but it can be confusing for the people around them. And then I've seen a lot of these kids that do look older than their age get in so much trouble at school because instinctively their teacher thinks like they should know this, they should know better, and then they don't. And it's a very confusing thing. Yeah, I could see it being hard for people to support these parts of them, parts of DID people that are childlike that come to the forefront. They need that care, and maybe they aren't able to present themselves in an adult-like manner, and sometimes maybe they try to fake it, but ultimately they can't. And
Yeah.
yeah, I love that idea of like taking care of them and supporting them because that part of them is still a child.
Yeah. And like, I mean, ultimately, like we all fake it a little bit to like, I don't
To make
know,
it.
to make it. Yeah. Sometimes we should all be stretching ourselves to like, you know, learn and grow and stuff. But like, you can always tell when you know that particular information, you can always tell when someone's a little more uncomfortable with that information, doesn't fully grasp as much of the information as you do in a particular field or whatever. Like you can always tell. Like, but so like I think that way with a kid trying to pretend to be older, sure they may do it, but you can always tell that they aren't developmentally there. And so
Yeah, that it's a facade.
yeah, with DID too, it's important. Well, I think it's always important to reverence and respect everybody in their story. Everybody has something for everybody. Some people a little more pretty than others, but it's not pretty per se to go through life. It's kind of messy for everybody. And so honoring everybody's story or like giving them the space to come to you and tell you their story when it's their time. With DID, everything was taken away from them as children. There was no safety. And so like the most honoring thing that we can do for this population, as well as a lot of us, the most honoring thing that we can do is let them have their space to tell their story when they're ready. And it's their story, it's their trauma, how they choose to share it and who they choose to share it with and how they choose to heal. That is the healing process, by giving them that power, showing them that they've always had this power, but showing them that this is their power to choose how to heal, when to heal, who they share their story with. It's very sacred ground that you're walking on when people tell their trauma story to you. And so just being very honoring of that, and as supportive as you can be. And it is okay to not understand someone's trauma. It's okay to come to it with curiosity, but make sure that curiosity is followed with love behind it. And so that the questions come out correctly, or like come out as genuine and kind. I think with like my own stuff, like I'm happy to share it with people when I'm open to sharing it and I open up and then they start asking questions. I like that. I appreciate that when people come to you with their stories and open up and want help or want support. That's really an honoring place to be. And so with their stuff and with their life and with their thought process, minimalizing all of this so that they're have more streamlined thinking, more streamlined whatever, like to support them. It's really important for us to recognize that we are on sacred ground and to tread lightly and to also let them drive the process of how they heal, when they heal.
That reminds me of the saying, always err on the side of kindness, because you don't know what unseen burdens others bear. Especially with these people, they're carrying a huge burden and we may not fully understand it, but err on the side of kindness because it's a lot.
Yeah. Well, and recognize too that my kindness may show up very eager with my anxiety and ADHD. My kindness may show up eager where they may be offended by that. Yes, err on the side of kindness, but also understand that how you present may be overwhelming for people or maybe boring for people. You know what I mean? And so just having those kind of check-ins to make sure that you're not, because I can fill up a room sometimes with my personality. And so making sure that I'm filling the space appropriately for those around me.
Yeah. So maybe err on the side of welcoming whatever energy they give out. If you're adapting, being respectful of their needs, that is kindness. Kindness isn't coming at a situation, helping someone from how you want to help them, how you want to feel good about yourself. Kindness is being there for them in the way they need it.
Yeah.
I could imagine if I was someone that had DID, that I would want to lean towards minimalism, because having so many personalities and so many wants would be overwhelming. I imagine it as having lots of kids, or lots of people home. Having lots of people in my home. I would want minimalism to help me manage my own space so that I wasn't overwhelmed by all of the other people in my home's things. Mm-hmm. Sorry. So for me, I probably would lean towards minimalism. And if I were to do that with D&D, you're saying being very honoring of the other personalities. If you do choose to go about it, if you do think this is the tool that will help you, do it in a way that honors you, but also honors them, respects their space, respects their wants and needs, as well as your own.
Yeah. Well, and also recognize that I don't have control over my kids ultimately. I could forcefully go into their rooms and get rid of their stuff. Yes, as a parent, I could do that. And, with alternates, you could do that. You could go into their space and get rid of their stuff.
But at what cost? You're losing so much trust.
Right. I would never do that to my children, because it is a great cost. And so it's important to recognize, you may want minimalism, one of the person alternates may want minimalism, but not all of the alternates want it. So if you can show them, like you did your husband, like if you could show them, like, this is the way I'm living, and it may take them a while to catch on to it and even like it. But also,
And they
like,
may never like it. It may
they
never
may,
be their thing.
well, and also, like, another thing with DID is when they go into CAT scans and brain scans and they're flipping into different alternate, they actually do change their brains. Altogether, they are one functioning human being. They are living compartmentalized with part of their brains in each, and part of their bodies and part of their stuff in each of the personalities. And so, developmentally, some of the alternates may not be at a place developmentally that they can even handle minimalism, or
Mm-hmm.
they may have so much extreme trauma held by one of those alternates that that's not going to be something that alternate could ever handle, ever, or until, like, and who knows, maybe integration is something that could happen. And but at this moment, at this time, that's not a feasible or acceptable expectation for that alternate to do.
I have to recognize that I'm not an expert in this topic. I don't have DID, so if we are off about anything, I am off about anything. Please don't kill us in the comments.
Well, or do.
Or do, like,
love...
yeah, let us know. We would love to know. But
yeah.
also take what we say with a grain of salt, because, like I said, I'm not an expert. Amanda knows a lot more about it. She has a better background with this than I do. But I was about to tell you a story of how I can relate to this, and it might not, and everything I say might not fit into their world. Right. Again, I am a foreigner in a foreign land here with this. I was thinking about my daughter. She is what I would consider more of a maximalist than me. I would say I'm more minimalistic. And when she was in elementary school, they have to use these boards to block off their desk when they're taking a test. So it's like a little cardboard thing so that they don't, like, look over at their friends' answers and cheat. And her board was, like, all white inside it, and it was giving her a lot of anxiety. And I thought about, like, if I was in that situation, it would help me focus more on my test. If I had white around me, all white, it would, like, clear my mind more, and I wouldn't have to be distracted by the things around me. I could focus more on what I'm doing. But for her, it was the opposite. Having that white felt too sterile and didn't relax her mind and didn't help her focus because she felt so anxious in such a sterile environment. So she brought home her board one day and we colored it. I like gave her all of the stuff and let her decorate it however she wanted, and she brought it back to school. And it just made her feel so much better. It was, like, bright with rainbows and hearts and stars and stuff, just whatever.
That's so cool.
Floated her boat. But that, like, made her feel at peace. That made her have a sense of focus and balance. And so what I'm trying to say is, like, with my daughter, she may always lean towards that side of needing more activity in her environment to feel secure, to feel at peace. And that's okay. We're different. And that's her version of what is most healthy for her. And it may be the same with your personalities. Like, yes, they've gone through different trauma than you. That, yes, they have other experiences than you, but also they could have different preferences in the end.
Right. And so learning how to coexist is very important in that, because ultimately coexisting is the thing that causes the most peace and the most safety. Learning how to coexist with your different family members, learning how to coexist with your different alternates or with you is extremely important, to learn how to do that and be okay that one personality is a little more messy, and that when you're in the driver's seat, you may be cleaning up or may be irritated that and wanting to ignore it because you think that that other person should be cleaning up. And so just finding a way to have balance is like ultimately like what I feel like minimalism ideology is all about, finding that balance and that peace to have a functioning life. And it's up to you what functioning looks like and what you fill that with.
Yeah, I totally agree. So in closing, I would say to support people, DID, err towards the sign of respect, the sign of kindness, welcoming in whatever it is that whatever energy they want to bring, make space for them. If you're someone with DID and you want to consider minimalism, please consider it for yourself and being honoring of the other parts of you that need either time or have different preferences.
Let us know your experiences are with DID. We both love to learn. And so this is a topic that I think that it needs more exploration and more understanding around. So we would love to know your personal experiences with it, as well as how you felt heard in this podcast, as well as things that we are ignorant in, and how you felt misunderstood. So our goal with this is to just go through different personality disorders to create a more functioning, peaceful environment for everybody. And so as we continue to go through this journey with minimalism and how it interacts with our mental space and our emotional space and our physical space.
Okay, so to that we say thank you next and have a good day.
Thank you.
That was probably a cheesy.
I know. Oh, well.
I could cut that out. If we want to
okay. We could cut all of it out if we need to. So, but I think it was good, overall.